The fear of being alone is controlling your life. Have you ever found yourself endlessly scrolling through your phone? Not because you're interested, but because you're afraid of what silence might reveal? Have you ever stayed in a relationship not because it made you happy, but because the thought of being alone was even scarier? You're not the only one. We live in a world that treats being alone like a disease. We think of solitude as a punishment, something only the rejected or broken experience. But here's the truth: solitude is not the problem. The fear of it is. And that fear might be shaping your life more than you realize. We live in a time where being busy is worn like a badge of honor. If you're always surrounded by people, always answering messages, always engaged, you must be doing something right. But beneath that constant activity, there's something deeper, a quiet panic about being left alone with ourselves. Think about it. What do you do when you're bored for even a minute? Most people grab their phones without even thinking. They check notifications, open social apps, read emails they already saw. Why? Because even a moment of stillness feels wrong, unnatural, uncomfortable. But why is that? To understand, we have to go back in time thousands of years to when humans lived in small tribes. Back then, being alone was dangerous. It meant you could be attacked, starve, or be forgotten. Your safety depended on your group, your status, your place among others. Our brains evolved in that context. The pain of social rejection is not just emotional, it's primal. The amygdala, the brain's fear center, lights up when we're excluded, triggering the same stress response as physical danger. So when you feel anxious about being left out of a group chat or not being invited to a party, it's not irrational. It's ancient. Now fast forward to today. The threat is gone, but the fear remains. Your brain hasn't caught up to the modern world. So you seek constant connection, not because you need it, but because your biology tells you to. And that's where the danger begins. Because when you fear solitude, you start to compromise who you are just to avoid it. What happens when you fear being alone? When you fear loneliness, you start clinging to people who aren't good for you. You chase validation through shallow interactions. You stay busy not because you're productive, but because you're terrified of what might surface when you stop. You lose yourself in the noise. You might even find yourself in relationships where you feel invisible, yet still you stay. Because the idea of leaving and being alone feels even more unbearable than staying and being unhappy. This fear doesn't just affect your relationships. It shapes your identity. When you're always focused on staying connected, you begin to change to fit in. You suppress your real thoughts. You hold back your honest opinions. You start to perform. You become who others want you to be, not who you really are. Eventually, you lose the ability to sit still, to reflect, to hear your inner voice. But here's the irony: the deeper you bury yourself in distractions, the lonelier you feel. Because true connection doesn't come from constant contact. It comes from authenticity. And authenticity starts with being okay with yourself alone. If you cannot enjoy your own company, how can you truly enjoy someone else's? Loneliness versus solitude. What's the difference? Let's be clear, loneliness and solitude are not the same. Loneliness is the pain of being alone. Solitude is the power of being alone. Loneliness feels like rejection. Solitude feels like freedom. The difference isn't the presence of others. It's the presence of self-acceptance. In solitude, you're not escaping the world. You're connecting with yourself. Great thinkers throughout history knew this. Virginia Woolf wrote about a room of one's own. Nietzsche found clarity in isolation. Thoreau went into the woods not to run from society, but to find his truest thoughts. Solitude is where you meet the real you. But most people are afraid of that meeting. Because when you're alone, you start to notice things you could ignore before. The emptiness. The unresolved wounds. The questions about your life, your path, your purpose. Solitude shows you the truth. And truth can be uncomfortable. But discomfort isn't something to run from, it's something to grow through. We've grown up believing that productivity is everything. That value is based on output. But the most important work you will ever do happens in the quiet when no one is watching, when there is no reward, no applause. The lies we believe about connection. We live in a culture that tells us more is better. More friends. More followers. More likes. More parties. But what if more isn't better? What if it's just louder? You can be in a crowd and feel alone. You can be in a relationship and feel unloved. You can be constantly texting and feel completely disconnected. Why? Because connection without depth is emptiness in disguise. Our obsession with busyness, with being seen, with being heard, it's not always about expression. Often, it's about covering up silence. But silence isn't your enemy. It's your mirror. It reflects your truth, your fears, your desires. And until you're willing to look into that mirror, you'll never really know who you are. Obu technology, distraction, and the illusion of belonging. Social media is a double-edged sword. It connects us but also trains us to crave attention. It rewards us for performance, not presence. It teaches us to show what people want, not what we feel. We scroll endlessly, not to learn, but to numb. Algorithms are designed to keep you hooked. They exploit your loneliness. They promise connection, but deliver comparison. Every time you post and wait for likes, you're outsourcing your self-worth. And every time you scroll past someone's highlight reel, you risk forgetting that you're seeing a filtered version of their life, not their truth. So, the more we engage, the more alone we feel. Because the connection is external, not internal. We are encouraged to chase trends rather than sit still. To post rather than reflect. To share rather than think. And in that process, we lose the ability to be alone. Learning to be alone again. But here's the shift. You can unlearn this fear. You can rewire your brain. You can reclaim solitude not as a curse, but as a gift. Start by creating small pockets of silence. Sit in your room without distractions. Take a walk without your phone. Eat a meal without multitasking. It will feel strange at first. You might feel anxious. That's normal. You're retraining your mind. Then, go deeper. Journal. Reflect. Meditate. Ask yourself questions you've been avoiding. What do I really want? Am I living in alignment with my values? Who am I when no one's watching? The more time you spend with yourself, the less approval you need from others. The more secure you feel in solitude, the clearer your relationships become. You stop clinging to people out of fear. You start choosing people out of alignment. And that is freedom. Real-life stories of solitude. Some of the greatest transformations come from solitude. Think of Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison and emerged wiser. Or Maya Angelou, who spent time in silence to reclaim her voice. Or monks, who dedicate years to isolation not to escape life, but to understand it. Solitude is not emptiness. It's a container for transformation. It's not the absence of connection. It's the deepening of self. Even in your own life, reflect, when did you grow the most? Was it during the noisy times or the quiet ones? Growth happens in the pause, in the space between. And solitude creates that space. Final reflection, alone but not lonely. You were never meant to fear your own company. You were meant to thrive in it. Being alone is where you stop performing, where you stop comparing, where you start being. The fear of being alone doesn't disappear overnight. But every time you choose stillness over noise, reflection over distraction, presence over performance, you weaken its grip. And eventually you realize you were never really alone. You just hadn't met yourself yet. And now that you have, you don't need the world to complete you. You are already whole. That's what solitude teaches. That's what freedom feels like. That's where real life begins. So take the step. Create space for yourself. Make solitude your sanctuary. Let it be where you return to, not when you're broken, but when you're ready to grow. Let it remind you that peace isn't out there. It's inside. And it's been waiting for you all along.